This is Bloomberg Technology. Coming up, Tesla's big day. 30 new owners get the keys to their Model 3 sedans today. But is Tesla's most affordable car yet truly for the masses? We'll read the fine print. Plus, Redfin's first trading day becomes an IPO success story. CEO Glenn Kelman joins us to explain why he felt the timing was right to go public. And a Bloomberg exclusive, merger mania seizes online travel as consolidations soar across the industry. Kayak CEO Steve Hafner joins us to discuss the M&A wave sweeping the travel space. But first, to our lead. It is a big day for Tesla CEO Elon Musk. On Friday evening, at an intimate event at Tesla's Fremont factory, Musk will be handing over the keys to the Model 3. Tesla has characterized the Model 3 as an inroad to mass market drivers with a price tag of $35,000. But is Tesla's most affordable car truly for the masses? And how much demand will there be? Joining us now to discuss, Bloomberg's Caroline Hyde in London, Bloomberg Tech's Alex Webb here with me in the studio, and from Irvine, California, Cox Automotive Senior Director of Content and Executive Publisher Carl Brower. Cox Automotive, it's a parent company of the brands Kelley Blue Book and Auto Trader. Carl, I'll start with you. So is it really for the masses when a fully loaded car is much more expensive than $35K?
It's hard to think of it as a mass market car when you think that the BMW 3 Series is similarly priced, and it's not really a mass market car. It's probably the most successful entry luxury car that's made right now, and it still isn't sold in, the volumes that Elon is predicting that he wants to sell this one in.
Alex, you and I both are going to be at the Model 3 key handover today at the Tesla factory. What do we know about the event? What can we expect?
I mean, very little. Elon's
going to be there.
Elon's going to be there. The way it works is they're going to give 30 cars, and the way they work it is that it's proximity to the Fremont factory. So the people who are closest there will be the first to get the cars. Now, who are the closest to the Fremont factory? The employees. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be Tesla employees, largely, we think, who get the car. We're going to be anticipating the final kind of trim of the vehicle. What are the aerodynamic performance elements of it, which we don't yet know about. The version we've seen before was a sort of preliminary model, and the final kind of fiddling around the edges is what we'll learn about.
Now, Caroline, lots of analysts weighing in. What are the bright spots, and what are they saying the pain points will be?
Yeah, there's certainly a mixed reaction in the month building up to this unveil, and notably it goes from negative to positive. In fact, if you look at the breakdown of analyst recommendations on Tesla at the moment, they're pretty evenly split. You've got about a third saying buy this stock, just over a third saying hold, and about 20% saying sell. If I look at the optimistic areas, well, Baird, one of the analysts out there, saying, look, this whole party, this fervor that we're going to see that you guys are going to be joining later today, that is a positive catalyst. We could see shares rally into this. But then you've got some more negative comment coming from Citi saying, look, we're worried about the cannibalization of the Model 3 eating into sales of the Model S, the Model X. Bernstein outlining the same sort of thing, really worrying about the inventories that have been doubling in the last second quarter. But then Morgan Stanley, they're a little bit more, even more woeful, saying Tesla is facing steady and intensifying competition. I raised to you the Volvo Cars announcement that happened earlier this month, the fact that they're going fully electric by 2019 in every single car, the fact that VW are saying that they can push Tesla to one side. It's a competitive market.
Interestingly, Gene Munster of Loop Ventures, who long covered Apple, said he thinks that the Model 3 release is going to be as big as the iPhone, and in fact suggested that Apple should buy Tesla. Take a listen to what Gene had to say.
Well, what they should do is buy Tesla. I mean, it's Elon Musk probably is not going to let it happen, but that could transform Apple.
Alex, what do you make of it?
I think there's a lot of people out there, a lot of investment bankers who'd be very excited at that prospect. Apple's yet to do any sizable deal. $3 billion is the most they've ever spent on Beats.
Which was a huge leap
Which
at the
for
time.
them was a huge leap, yes. And a lot of people half-jokingly say Apple should buy Tesla and make Elon the CEO of Apple. They love the idea of a visionary CEO, of course.
Chamath Palihapitiya wrote a whole column about that.
Exactly, right. And, of course, Apple has a track record of visionary CEOs. But I think, the big question really is about the fundamentals. Apple is a company which does a 20% net margin. The margins in the automotive industry are dreadfully weak in comparison. The mass market car companies do about a 6% net margin. The luxury car makers do a 12 to 15% net margin on a good year. And that's the big hurdle to broach there.
Carl, what do you think the biggest challenges are going to be for the Model 3?
Well, I think getting the car out there at the rate that he's talking about and finding that audience, you know, he's got a lot of backlogged deposits, over 350,000 deposits. But whether those will all come to fruition with people who want to buy the car once it's available, if the price goes up from 35,000 when you put options on it, that's a big question. The bigger one for me, though, is supporting those volumes. If he really sells hundreds of thousands of cars a year, he's got to support all those owners post-purchase. And ask any automaker out there, that can be the toughest part for you, is to actually keep your consumers happy once they bought the car.
We're expecting the average cost will be more like $42,000, $60,000 fully loaded. Caroline, give us the global picture. We know that regulations are changing around the world that may be more favorable to electric vehicles, which could work in Tesla's favor.
Exactly, and that's why the likes of Bloomberg New Energy Finance have been saying that Tesla really could steal a march over the course of the next 5 to 10 years because regulations are blowing a warm breeze towards them. We are seeing the likes, even this week alone, Emily, we saw in the United Kingdom, they're saying by 2040, you're not going to be allowed to buy new cars that are gasoline, that are diesel. Everything's going to be going towards a cleaner energy sort of a car. Of course, you can still own them by 2040, but you can't be buying new ones. The regulatory world really is pushing in favor of electric vehicles. But my key question is, by that point, you're going to have a lot of catch-up. And I think this is interesting why Citi in particular is saying, look, we want to see a stronger balance sheet coming from Tesla, because even though it's got a bigger market cap than GM, than Ford, those sorts of companies have really big, deep pockets, and they are pushing to try and play catch-up here.
The bigger picture, Carl, as Caroline mentioned, the auto industry is going through a sea change. What does it look like in 5, 10, 15 years? And, you know, not to mention self-driving cars as well.
Yeah, there's so much disruption about to hit the auto industry over the next 10 years. It's really hard to make any concrete predictions. But one thing we do know is that there will be more 200-plus mile range EVs in the next 3 years. And that's something to keep in mind. Tesla's kind of owned that market for the last 5 to 6 years. Now they're going to have a lot of competition, and it'll be interesting to see if they can hold on to a large chunk of the market when there's others out there.
Last word, Alex.
It's relevant that this is going to be the first supposedly mass market car, and as we've seen in a whole bunch of industries, first movers don't necessarily end up the winners. Like the ability of the German car makers and the big OEMs to flip a switch and over the next 3 to 5 years come up with electric vehicles, and they have a huge captive market already. That is really going to be when the big. That's when we'll be able to see who's going to be the winner, essentially.
All right, Alex Webb, our Bloomberg Tech reporter. I'll see you at the Tesla factory tonight. Carl Brower of Cox Automotive and Caroline Hyde for us there in London. Thank you all for joining us. Staying in the auto industry, Meg Whitman has taken her name out of the running to become the next CEO of Uber. In a tweet, the HP Enterprise CEO wrote, "I am fully committed to HPE and plan to remain the company's CEO. We have a lot of work to do at HPE and I am not going anywhere. Uber's CEO will not be Meg Whitman." This comes on the heels of a Bloomberg report that Jeff Immelt, the outgoing CEO of GE, is on the list of candidates to take the reins at Uber. There are said to be fewer than 6 names on the short list. Coming up, Redfin has found its home on the public market. We will bring you CEO Glenn Kelman from the NASDAQ on what is next for the company. And Bloomberg Tech is live streaming on Twitter. Check us out at Bloomberg Tech TV, weekdays 5 p.m. in New York, 2 p.m. in San Francisco. This is Bloomberg. The Indian government will soon be keeping a closer eye on Instagram to sniff out tax cheats. Starting next month, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government will gather information from social media sites, primarily to see if posts of lavish purchases and spending by users match their income declarations. It's part of India's most ambitious tax overhaul as the country grapples with a bloating budget deficit. Redfin has officially hit the public markets in a $138.5 million IPO. The tech-powered real estate brokerage saw its shares pop more than 30% at the start of trading, opening at close to $20, well above the opening price of $15 a share. Redfin now boasts a valuation of $1.2 billion. Earlier, I spoke to Redfin CEO Glenn Kelman and asked him why now was the right time for Redfin to take this step. Take a listen.
I think the markets just reward it now. So for a long time we had public company investors, but there were unicorn valuations in the private markets. There was no reward for liquidity, and now the public markets are just ready to really be the most efficient marketplace for us.
So if there's another housing crisis type of event, how does your business sustain itself?
Well, we're just going to keep on taking shares. So I know that it's going to affect us. There are ups and downs in real estate, but we have built a better mousetrap. We serve the customer better. We've got technology to make it more efficient, so we'll just keep on taking share. Even if it depresses our revenues a little, it's still going to grow in the end.
So would you say Redfin is recession-proof?
No. I think it's going to be a wild and crazy business. We're going to go up and down sometimes with the market, but we're always going to be taking share, we believe, because we really do offer better service at a better price.
Who do you see as your primary competition? Is it Zillow or is it the traditional brokerages?
It's Century 21, it's RE/MAX, it's Keller Williams. It's these established brokerages that have been around for a long time. So it's going to be a tough fight, but we're in it for the long haul.
And Redfin does have its own brokers, but I wonder if brokers are losing their importance as the market changes and technology plays a greater role.
Yeah, well, our thesis here is that better wins. It might take a little while because people don't buy a house every day, because they're a little bit risk averse, because they're worried about hanging a crazy sign in their yard. But in the end, if you have technology to make it more efficient, if you save people money, if you sell their house for more money, better is going to win. And so that is what this day means to us, is that over time, we're going to continue to take share and make our products better and serve our customers better, and that will win out in the end.
So when it comes to the growth plan, is there any more technology that you plan to introduce to further differentiate yourself?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we started out by inventing map-based listing search, but then we developed these on-demand tours where you could click a button to get into a house. And now what we're working on is these offers where you can generate it in a few clicks so that you get to the sale first and you buy the house before anyone else knows it's on the market. We're working on selling homes directly over our website. We're working on the mortgage business. There's so much to do. There's so much to do.
Redfin did report a loss in the first 3 months of the year. What's your line of sight on profitability?
You know, we have a pretty simple line of sight because we've been growing revenues faster than costs for the past few years. So the main question we've been getting on the road is why not invest more in growth? And we're just trying to strike the right balance. It's a big market, and we do have what we believe is a better service. So we want to make sure that we invest in that, but still have some financial discipline. And we think we've hit the right balance.
Now, I know you're very focused on company culture. This is a very big issue right now, given several stories about sexual harassment in the industry, everything that's going on at Uber. You've launched a whole new diversity campaign. Why do you think tech can't get this issue right?
Well, it used to be that computer science classes were just filled with dudes, and now that's changing, and it's changing for the better. And I think one of the reasons it's changing is because we can't just afford to pay people through the nose. Google and Facebook would otherwise have a monopoly on talent. So instead, we've got to be a better place to work, and it's got to be better for everyone. Redfin has gone from having no women in its Seattle engineering team a few years ago to being 30% women, and we make better products as a result. We really do. And we keep our people longer. We keep them happier. It's been the best change that's happened to our business.
Blue Apron and Snap have had a tough go of it on the public markets. There's a lot of political uncertainty. What are your biggest concerns going forward when it comes to things that you can't control?
You know, you can't worry about that. I worry about we're going to show up late for a home tour or we're going to screw up somebody's offer. But if we can just serve customers well, eventually the stock price is going to take care of itself. I mean, it's a valuable thing, being the modern way to buy or sell a home. And sometimes shareholders are going to appreciate it and sometimes they're not. But you just got to keep your head down. You got to keep working. And if we do that, I think we'll be okay.
Redfin CEO Glenn Kelman there. Coming up, Kayak CEO Steve Hafner joins us for an exclusive interview. Why he is bullish on the future of travel planning using AI next. Amazon's entry into Southeast Asia hasn't gone exactly to plan. 24 hours after introducing its Prime 2-hour delivery service to Singapore, app users were told that all delivery windows were sold out. Amazon says it's trying to resume normal service. This is the company's first foray into the region, and cloud could face stiff competition from Alibaba, which just acquired control of Southeast Asia-based e-commerce site Lazada. This year, we've seen a ton of consolidation and expansion in the online travel industry. Earlier this week, Priceline successfully acquired online rival travel company Momondo after getting the green light from the EU's Travel Competition Commission. This comes after China's Ctrip.com bought rival site Skyscanner and Trivago's public debut in December 2016. Joining us now from New York to discuss M&A in the online travel space is Kayak CEO Steve Hafner. Kayak, of course, is owned by the Priceline Group. Steve, thanks so much for joining us. So you guys have a new partnership with Amazon whereby you can actually make hands-free bookings with Amazon Alexa for hotel rooms. How do you see AI changing the way bookings happen in the future?
Sure, it's great to be on, Emily. You know, AI is one of those things that is a buzzword these days, but it's actually a capability that we've been investing in at Kayak for many years now. So the way we're looking at AI is trying to bridge or marry the things that you liked about a traditional offline travel agency with the always-on capability of Kayak's technology. So we're trying to find a way for consumers to use conversational tones to interact with Kayak on their preferred platform, whether that's Alexa or Apple TV or Google Home, and actually get answers from our tech stack in the background to help them complete their travel planning.
You also have partnerships with Facebook Messenger, Apple TV, Google Home, Slack. Doesn't this, though, require a major change in behavior, especially if you're booking a hotel room sight unseen?
Well, it might for someone like you or me, but if you're a millennial or even younger than that, you're actually used to speaking to your phone and used to speaking to these always-on devices. So I think what we're really trying to do is anticipate what the next generation feels comfortable with. You know, if you actually talk to my grandparents, they never even made it to the browser world of a desktop point-and-click mouse, much less to conversational. So I think that's actually going to be the future. At Kayak, we like to lead in innovation, and we're helping to shape that future.
So what other kind of partnerships, then, should we expect in the future?
Well, basically, any place where a consumer is engaging on a platform or an environment where we think there could be some travel intent, we want to have a technology that can take that intent and turn it into a booking, both for the consumer's behalf, but also for the travel providers behind us.
Priceline has been very acquisitive. Do you expect M&A in this space to continue?
Well, you know, we're very focused at the Priceline Group. There's a number of brands there on helping consumers experience the world. And the most important thing for us is making a better product and service and getting scale. And to the extent that M&A is a tool that we can use to either build audience for scale or acquire new technologies or talented teams, we'll continue to look at that.
What is your plan to compete with Airbnb in particular?
Well, Airbnb is someone we'd like to partner with. So at Kayak, if a consumer comes and performs a travel query, we like to show them a complete picture of what's available. And that's no different for the hotel search. So we show them just about every hotel in the world, and we show them lots of non-hotel accommodations too. Not from Airbnb as a brand, but from folks like Booking.com and HomeAway.
Have you guys talked with Airbnb about that, and what's been the response?
You know, I talked to Brian Chesky, their CEO, from time to time, and I've always told him that we're more than happy to do business with him at any time, and I hope someday he picks or takes me up on that.
All right, we mentioned Priceline's acquisition of Momondo earlier. Is that going to become part of Kayak?
It is. You know, most of your viewers probably aren't familiar with Momondo. They have a leadership position in Europe, particularly in the Nordics and Russia and the UK. And we closed the acquisition this week. We're rolling it into Kayak. And the reason for joining forces is actually to gain scale and to have a common tech platform for serving up travel answers to folks worldwide. So with the acquisition, we're now in 65 countries, and we have offerings in 28 languages.
Priceline is now the biggest travel agency in the world. All these acquisitions, is this really good for the consumer? Is this good for me?
Absolutely, it's good for you. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it, and regulators wouldn't be giving us the green light. You know, we went through a very thorough review when Priceline bought Kayak, and we went through a very thorough review when by the EU when Priceline bought Momundo and rolled it into Kayak. So it's something that scale is beneficial for consumers. We're not actually providing the flights or operating the hotels. We're providing the search engine on top of that lets you find those options for you. So bigger is better.
All right, you said it. Steve Hafner, CEO of Kayak, thank you so much for joining us today there from New York. Coming up, Intel is bucking the PC trend with upbeat sales forecasts. CFO Bob Swan tells us why the company's glory days aren't over yet. And if you like Bloomberg News, check us out on the radio. You can listen on the Bloomberg Radio app, Bloomberg.com, and in the U.S. on Sirius XM. This is Bloomberg.
I'm Elisa Parenti in Washington, and you're watching Bloomberg Technology. Let's start with a check of your first word news. President Trump has fired Reince Priebus. He is out as White House Chief of Staff. Priebus has confirmed that he resigned yesterday. The president has replaced him with Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly. In a tweet, the president called Kelly a, quote, great American. Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci had suggested recently that Priebus leaked information to the press. President Trump was on Long Island, New York today, unveiling the administration's plan to crack down on gang violence.
We're going to destroy the vile criminal cartel MS-13 and many other gangs. But MS-13 is particularly violent.
The president also touched on last night's failed effort to repeal the U.S. health law. He says he was right when he said recently to let Obamacare implode. Meantime, Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer praised Senator John McCain for voting against the GOP health bill.
I have not seen a senator who speaks truth to power as strongly, as well, and as frequently as John McCain. The very same courage he showed as a naval aviator in Vietnam, he showed last night and has shown time and time again.
Senator Schumer also praised Maine's Susan Collins and Alaska's Lisa Murkowski. Venezuela's chief prosecutor has raised the death toll from the nearly 4 months of protest against President Maduro's government to at least 113. The toll is expected to climb as authorities enforce a ban on protests ahead of a polarizing vote on Sunday. Meantime, the UN's Human Rights Office is voicing concern about the risk of further violence in Venezuela.
We've repeatedly called on the government, as you've highlighted, to guarantee the freedom of peaceful assembly and association, and that is something that we are repeating now. We're speaking out now because, given the hugely tense situation that Venezuela is in, we really want to repeat our call for calm and for peaceful protest.
Italy has approved sending naval units to back up the Libyan coast guards in the fight to limit migrant trafficking. The AP reports Italy's support comes at the request of the North African country. The EU will give $53 million to help the program. And in a blow to the tobacco industry, the FDA has unveiled what it calls a comprehensive plan for regulating tobacco. The agency wants to cut nicotine in cigarettes to non-addictive levels. Global news 24 hours a day, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Elisa Parenti, and this is Bloomberg.
Back to a story we continue to monitor. President Trump is replacing Reince Priebus, announcing on Twitter that he has appointed Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly as his chief of staff. The president spoke earlier after arriving at Joint Base Andrews. Take a listen.
Reince is a good man. John Kelly will do a fantastic job. General Kelly has been a star done an incredible job thus far, respected by everybody. A great, great American. Reince Priebus, a good man. Thank you very much.
His ouster caps a week of heightened tensions in the White House, where Priebus had been embroiled in a very public feud with Trump's new communications director, Anthony Scaramucci. Joining us now on the phone, our Bloomberg chief Washington correspondent, Kevin Cirilli. This just after, Kevin, a pretty epic report from The New Yorker, where Scaramucci very publicly calls out Reince Priebus. What do we know about what went down here?
Well, I can tell you that members of President Trump's most trusted advisors, including members of his family, over the past several months have grown more frustrated with Reince Priebus, the former chairman of the Republican Party, communications director Sean Spicer. So last week we saw the removal of Sean Spicer, and then we saw with the arrival of Skybridge Capital's Anthony Scaramucci a bit more controversy engulfing this White House in terms of the public display of the infighting within the administration. All of that is capped off by now Reince Priebus leaving. But what does this mean for policy? What does this mean for tax reform? What does this mean for health care? I can tell you this. The reason that Sean Spicer, the reason that Reince Priebus were brought into the fold during the transition was because of their connection and relationship with House Speaker Paul Ryan, as well as with legislators in the Republican Party on Capitol Hill. And so for there to be such a crushing defeat on health care, less than 24 hours now, we learn that Reince Priebus is now out of the administration, and that shouldn't be taken lightly.
Reince Priebus has been blamed for the lack of legislative successes since Trump took office. That said, tell us a little bit more about General John Kelly and if he can get more done.
Well, he is seen as someone who is no drama. He is seen as someone who is one of the least public the heads in the cabinet. He's someone who has a very storied military history, someone who is well respected within the military community, and someone who, quite frankly, does not come with the same political background as you saw with a pick in Reince Priebus. And so, quite candidly, someone like Reince Priebus, he really embodied the establishment of Washington politics and conservative politics even before he was brought on into the administration, even before this 2016 presidential cycle kicked into high gear. With the arrival of General Kelly, this is a military pick.
Now, President Trump did speak earlier today about the Homeland Security Secretary. Take a listen to what he had to say about John Kelly.
I want to congratulate John Kelly, who has done an incredible job of Secretary of Homeland Security. Incredible. One of our real stars. Truly one of our stars. John Kelly is one of our great stars.
Kevin, so much of the story of this administration has been about the infighting and the palace intrigue. Do we expect that to change now? Do all these new guys get along?
Well, I don't think it's going to change. That the palace intrigue is going to continue. Honestly, quite frankly, I'll be blunt. It's the culture of Washington as we know it currently in 2017 and even for quite some years before it. But in terms of how it relates to the Trump administration, I think that the comments of Anthony Scaramucci to The New Yorker speak for themselves. He somewhat apologized, not really, in a tweet. But, I mean, there's just a sense. I feel like investors are looking at Washington right now and kind of confused and don't know what to make of it. We haven't seen much movement in the market, but along with the rest of the country, they're just watching this with a sense of what is going on down there. I can tell you that at a staff level, at a junior staff level, all the way up to the principal level, the Republican lawmakers that I speak with daily on Capitol Hill are looking at this and also very much confused as to what seems to be a lack of organization coming out of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue on a Friday evening, a rainy Friday evening here in Washington.
All right, Kevin Cirilli, another not dull day out of Washington. Thanks so much, our Bloomberg chief Washington correspondent there, Kevin, on the phone. Well, Intel reported record second quarter earnings yesterday after the bell, bucking the industry decline and posting sales of $4.4 billion, a gain of 9%. The company also gave an upbeat forecast for third quarter and annual revenue. Earlier today, Bloomberg's Caroline Hyde spoke to Intel CFO Bob Swan and asked about the company's PC numbers. Take a listen.
It's a declining market, and we had outstanding performance, Caroline. 12% top-line growth, 58% improvement in operating income, and introduction of new products that we're very excited about. So in a declining market, what we've found is simply performance sells. The high-end products that Intel has are increasingly demanded by both consumers and enterprises alike, and that's what really drove an outstanding performance from our PC business in the quarter.
But is there any concern potentially about inventory building up? This is something that analysts are now floating. Are we seeing that?
You know, as we look at going into the second half of the year, we kind of characterize the inventory levels as relatively healthy in the channel. So the inventory levels have been a bit lean over the last couple quarters, but they're pretty healthy going into the second half of the year. And as a result of that, we raised our full year guidance for the company for the year by $1.3 billion, and that's primarily driven by the performance of our PC business. So healthy channels with a healthy outlook for our business going into the second half of the year.
Shifting into your server part of the business, the server chips, the data centers, that too growing strongly, up 9%. Close but no cigar when it comes to your double-digit growth forecast for the longer term. But tell us about why we're still seeing reticence to invest from governments, from companies. What's the uncertainty about?
Well, what we indicated early in the year for our data center business is high single-digit growth. In the second quarter, we were at 9% growth, so we're right on track with what we had laid out. And secondly, and probably most importantly, we launched a one of the most high-performance products called Xeon Scalable for the second half of the year, which we're really excited by. It's passed benchmarks, like the top 50 benchmarks for performance in this product have ranked us extremely well, and that we think will drive increased demand with higher performance for our clients in the second half of the year. If you look underneath the covers of the growth rate for the business, we saw very strong cloud growth, up 35%. And the comms segment was also up 17%. Our adjacency businesses within data center were up 12%. So real strong growth in the quarter. What we saw as relatively slow growth was in the enterprise sector. As we see more workloads moving to the cloud, we're well positioned to capitalize on that. So good quarter, excited for the second half of the year.
Is it the shift to the cloud that's stopping corporate spend, though, or is it global risks, uncertainty? What are you getting the feeling for?
Well, again, we have to put it into context. In a global GDP that's probably in the 2 to 3% range, our data center business did grow by 9% in the quarter. So that's pretty strong, healthy growth for a business of this size. Again, there's a fairly dramatic shift in terms of how CIOs at our customers are spending their money, with an increased component of their workloads moving to the cloud, and we are well positioned to help cloud performance drive incremental value for their customers.
Well positioned, but the second half, analysts are expecting a slowdown in your revenue. We are expecting competition coming from AMD when it comes into the data center part of the business. We've got the likes of NVIDIA hot on your heels. Can you be so pricing confident when you've got such competition?
You know, the one thing that's been fairly consistent across all of our businesses, whether it's PC, whether it's data center, whether it's Internet of Things, is we're in a stage where performance delivers. and the higher performance of your products, the more customers are willing to pay for it. So that's what we've been experiencing. And as we go into the second half, we know that we will continue to deal with competition. We feel very good about our product lineup, and I would just say performance sells, and that's what's allowed us to deliver strong performance in an exciting second half of 2017.
Intel CFO Bob Swan there with our own Caroline Hyde. Coming up, how businesses are protecting themselves from the next hacking wave. That is next. This is Bloomberg. The Black Hat Information Security Conference wrapped up this week in Las Vegas. The annual conference is the biggest gathering of hackers in the world and aims to provide its over 15,000 attendees with the very latest in security research, development, and trends. Joining us now to discuss the biggest themes emerging from the event, RSA General Manager and Senior Director of Cyber Defense, Peter Tran, who spoke at the conference. So, Black Hat now, DEF CON next week, another big security conference.
Right now.
Right now.
Actually, right now.
What were the big themes coming out of this conference?
I would describe the 15,000 that were there. It's like the Hunger Games of hacking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was pure chaos. You had competition. You had surreptitious. I mean, any 2-mile radius of where you were going to go, you stood a chance of being a target. But the themes coming out of it, a lot more business focus, a lot more business risk, and you saw a lot more of industry players going there to collaborate and to learn, because it's really important for business to learn what is the context of my cyber risk. I need to understand how that's going to impact my business instead of just the tech itself. You had the tech, you had artificial intelligence, you had IoT, mobile, car hacking, all of the latest trends that are coming out. But this year in particular, I think I saw more leather shoes and suits coming out of there than I ever saw before.
All right. So you started your career as a federal agent, worked your way up.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what you think are the biggest risks out there right now on the cyber battlefield.
I think it's a changing landscape of where enterprises are going from an IT infrastructure. It was third platform, which is big data, mobile, social, and then now we're going into arguably the fourth platform of materializing that to connected living and device IoT driven. So by 2020, we're looking at over 50 billion IoT devices and sensors connected. To me, that's a complete Wild West of the next attack surface that's occurring. Mobile banking, app-driven world. I mean, I don't know one app I'm not using all the time. So we're completely elevating to another platform. We're no longer hardware-based. We're software-defined, hosted in the cloud. So two big areas that we're just starting. So we're migrating so fast that security tends to have gaps in catching up to being able to monitor and detect for that proactively.
There's been so much discussion about Russia and state-sponsored hacking. How concerned are you about that?
I think state-sponsored hacking is a global challenge. There isn't any one single nation state, and we've been battling this from the early days of the Pentagon in the late 1990s. I was in that seat myself too, and it's par for the course. And I think the acceleration, the complexity that we see now, you start to see more sophistication, you start to see more frequency, and attackers are treating it like a business. So they have a business model by which they approach attacks. It's no longer, let's throw everything at the wall and let's see what sticks. And maybe we'll get something, maybe we don't. But now they're more concerned about, can I disrupt data? Is there destruction there? And they kind of manipulate data in such a way, just like trading floor markets. So if you get minute changes in data, you can start to shape economic models, global. They call it cyber economics or global economics of cyber.
Does it seem like the hackers are bolder than ever? I mean, when it comes to the hacking of the U.S. election, it just seems like they were so brazen.
Well, there's two camps. There's the loud and proud, because I can do it, because I can. And then there's others that scare me the most, that are the low and slow, more quiet, that you don't hear about until something material happens. And it could be a week, it could be several years. The longest I've seen a hacker go undetected in a network is 7 years.
Wow.
And that's with the data we know about. So imagine it could be 10, we don't know, but that's what we know, is that they're in it for the long haul. They establish a foothold and they want to be able to weaponize when they want to, not when we can detect them.
All right, well, DEF CON playing out over this weekend.
We shall see.
In Las Vegas. We'll see what happens. Peter Tran, RSA Senior Director, thank you so much
Welcome.
for joining us. Coming up, it's virtual reality meets laser tag. We'll take you behind the scenes of Mindtrek's new virtual reality arena next. This is Bloomberg. Despite their greatly anticipated releases, virtual reality systems like Oculus Rift and HTC Vive have seen sluggish sales. But one East Coast company is convinced that VR will grow if it brings people together. Bloomberg's Ann Mostu went inside Mindtrek's new virtual reality arena located just outside of Boston to test it out.
Full range of motion, the wires are good.
It's virtual reality on a larger, more social scale.
Okay, shoot.
In this warehouse, 12 miles outside Boston, Mindtrek is one of the nation's first multiplayer virtual reality arenas.
I got him, hit him. That's two big guys.
If you don't keep those undead out.
Virtual reality, by and large, isn't a very isolating experience. We've created it in a format where it's more of a social experience, and we think that can sell.
Here, up to 16 players move and communicate wirelessly to fight 3D zombies and explore fantasy landscapes.
This is great. Oh my God.
David O'Connor is co-owner of the $1 million, 4,000 square foot facility.
The backpacks are a military-grade backpack. It carries a small portable computer. It's an Alien Alpha computer. It's battery operated.
Unlike some forms of VR, the players are untethered.
There's 128 machine vision cameras within here that gather the data wirelessly from the backpacks the players wear and relays it to the server and then back to all the players.
The technology in the arena was developed by Australia-based Zero Latency, which has also partnered with venues in Australia and Japan. Mindtrek has licensing exclusivity in Massachusetts, where it plans to open a second location this fall. It also has rights and hopes to open soon in Pennsylvania and New Jersey.
Ooh, message.
Virtual reality has struggled to go mainstream and may not until 2021. Insufficient content, clumsy hardware, and pricey headsets are cited for holding back mass adoption, according to Bloomberg Intelligence Analysis. VR at home is slowly improving, so also poses as a threat. But O'Connor says any form of adoption brings more business.
This clearly feels different than it did a few years ago as far as how much virtual reality is being adopted. So as far as the life cycle, although it's been around in some form or fashion for 20 years, I think we're in the first inning of a 9-inning game right now.
Oh, there's a robot coming right at us. Shoot, shoot, shoot.
Bloomberg's Ann Mostu there. Sticking with gaming, Tencent is hoping its bet on a UK video game maker won't be as wild a ride as the game it produces. China's largest internet media company has bought a $23 million stake in Frontier Developments, the studio best known for the Roller Coaster Tycoon franchise. Frontier says the investment will improve their access into the lucrative Chinese market. And an update to the news we told you about earlier. President Trump has replaced his chief of staff, announcing on Twitter that he had appointed Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly to the job. The ouster of Reince Priebus, who said he resigned Thursday, caps a week of heightened infighting at the White House. Priebus had been embroiled in a very public feud with Trump's new communications director, Anthony Scaramucci, who skewered Priebus in a conversation with a New Yorker reporter. Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders says that the president and Kelly have been discussing Kelly's new role for a while. Bloomberg Technology is, of course, live streaming on Twitter. Check us out at Bloomberg Tech TV, weekdays 5 p.m. in New York, 2 p.m. in San Francisco. Next week, we will delve into earnings from Apple and Tesla. That is all for now. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. This is Bloomberg.